love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. And love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion.
God's not dead.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Good morning and welcome to the King's Report this Monday, October 16th, 2017, 8th year of Changi, 8th month, 27th day. By the head of the calendar, I'm your host, Cheong Sean Moon, second king of Changi. Let's first go for our AccuWeather forecast with Tim, the agent elder. Tim.
Good morning. It's cloudy with a couple of brief showers this morning. In fact, we may be having one of those brief showers right now, according to the radar. and it's 61 degrees, which is actually higher than the expected high temperature today.
Higher than
Expected high temperature,
High
daytime high,
Whoa,
yes.
whoa.
So it's warmer now than it's going to be at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, which is usually when we have our daytime high. And that's because yesterday we had an observed high of 70 degrees, and a cold front moved through, and now we're getting some very cool air down from Canada, and so the high today is expected to be 58, 12 degrees lower than what it was yesterday. Then tomorrow morning, now the expected low during late night tonight and tomorrow morning will be 32 degrees, freezing. So I still don't see any frost warnings, but I would be careful about that. But then it's going to warm up during the rest of the week. We're going to get it back into the 70s. No more 80s. I think no more 80s. I think for the next until spring or early summer. So we don't have to worry about that. But the cool October air is still having trouble sort of hanging on.
Got it. Well, it was interesting. We were we got back at about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, because Toini, the queen, gave her some bones on some pig bones to chew on, and she choked on one. She almost, golly, she couldn't get it out of her system, and it was very bad. I mean, she was choking pretty hard, and it was to the point where we said, "Oh my gosh, we got to take her to vet." So we had to drive down to Newton to take her to the emergency room. But by the time we got there, and the doctor, the doggy was, it looked like it was subsiding quite a bit, and now she looks a lot better now. But golly, what a pain in the ashtray, man. So we just literally got back a couple hours ago.
Wow.
Been a rough Sunday. Rough Sunday night, and of course on Sunday, and there's
I'm glad that Toini's okay.
yeah, Toini's okay. The babies we were actually a little afraid that Toini would not make it because she was wheezing and breathing so in a wacky manner. But even on the whole trip down there to the emergency, Newton, New Jersey, she was struggling to breathe, but then suddenly it started subsiding, and then while we're waiting for the doctor, she started falling asleep and breathing better, and it was, okay. And so we said, we told the nurse, maybe she's doing a little better. So they just basically no charge let her go. So that was good, but we did arrive quite late. So I hope I am on. I need some ginseng power probably this morning to get me through, especially with our guests today. They'll be joining us on the third hour. All right, folks, let's go now to our Rima, and we are in the Rima, Mark 7, and Mark 7 talks about defilement comes from within. From within. This is where Jesus is talking, are confronted by the Pharisees. And they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is, with unwashed hands. They found fault, etc., etc., etc. And then they asked, why do your disciples not wash according to the tradition of elders, etc., etc.? And my Rima was on 14. When he had called all the multitude to himself, he said to them, hear me, everyone, and understand. There's nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him, but the things which come out of him, that are the things that defile a man. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. When he entered a house away from the crowd, his disciple asked him concerning the parable. So he said to them, are you thus without understanding also? Do you not perceive that whatever enters a man from the outside cannot defile him, because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is eliminated, thus purifying all foods? And he said, what comes out of a man that defiles a man? For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile a man. And there you go. You know, it was after service we had a meeting with Jamal, and of course that's the reason why we couldn't join everybody at the round table yesterday, as everybody probably knows by now. And I think it was a good meeting. It was very good, and very clarifying. And let's just put it like that. There is many things that can be done on both sides, but I think God is leading that situation, you know, to a resolution, you know, and where two sides can hopefully be able to compromise a little bit and allow all peoples to move forward. Because like I said, this whole thing takes up lots of energy. The Lourdes and Jamal thing takes up lots of energy, and is, you know, there are hurt hearts here. And as I mentioned in the service, these are of course two patriots, whether you like them or not, that stood up for Father at the final hour. So it is important, and they're not just normal patriots as well. They're some of the first patriots, and some of the first to get out there and fight on the battlefield. So that has a important precedence. Fights between sanctuarians obviously usually don't get to the level of where I have to, you know, meddle in between. And of course I try to stay out of those things. But of course Jamal and Lourdes were some of the literally foundational brothers and sisters that were gathered with us here in Pennsylvania. You know, before any of the other states, you know, sanctuarian were coming out, etc. They were one of literally the first with us here in Pennsylvania. So that merits a situation for us to be able to hear both sides out. Of course, it's interesting. We're gonna have to look into a little more, but you know, the idea that Jamal's case was double jeopardy, there's some controversy around that. I talked with some lawyers, and some lawyers believe that that is not double jeopardy because no jury ruled on the trial. Isn't that interesting? Whereas some believe that it is double jeopardy, that Jamal cannot resubmit his case because he withdrew. So that's an interesting debate that's going on. But regardless of whatever the situation, these are two important pioneering figures for sanctuary and for that stood up for the three kingships. Literally like one of the first. So of course it is important that there's some resolution and compromise and such things, and that people can move forward because they're such pioneering patriots. Of course it drives a lot of wedges, and it drives a lot of pain in the hearts of other sanctuarians who may have wittingly or unwittingly gotten sucked in between or whatever. The point is, hopefully there is some type of resolution and some type of scenario that the Holy Spirit and Father can lead us on so that we can have some type of closure. I don't think you'll ever get a situation where they're best buddies. That's an unrealistic expectation. And we know human nature enough and human interaction enough that we won't hope for such wild and delusional results. But at least some level of closure should happen, and some level of being able to get beyond this so that our community can focus on not wasting energy on each other, but preaching the gospel. Preaching the gospel. Going out there and evangelizing, going out there and saving souls, going out there and bringing people a blessing, going out there and bringing people the true father, true parents, to the three kingships, to Chanyaguk, etc. Which of course is the responsibility of those in the last days to give the testimony of Jesus Christ and to preach the gospel, because it is basically the final time. The world has that blessing. So instead of wasting time on Jamal's group and Lourdes' group and groups forming around them, etc., which is not a problem. We don't forbid that. But some level of closure and some level of mending has to be done. And this is a good scripture to remind us that those things that come out of the heart of wickedness and contempt and things like that, those are the things which hurt. And there's potentially those feelings coming up potentially from both sides, for whatever reasons both sides may feel that it's justified. In any case, there needs to be some kind of closure to this whole charade and this whole episode, because of course this has impacts on micro and macro, and of course stultifies our ability to get out and have people understand who True Father is, have people understand divine principle, have people understand what our community is about, etc. So I thought it was a good conversation and clarifying conversation, and God willing, all your prayers and all your I think one person said, which I think is a great suggestion, people should be praying for Jamal and Lourdes. These are patriots who both stood up at the similar time for the defense of the three kingships or Father's kingship. So they are historical figures, whether you like it or not, whether you like them or not, is irrelevant. They are people that did a very difficult thing in the beginning, one of the first. Okay? So they have a special place in history, they have a special place in sanctuary, and of course, we are not in the business of excluding brothers and sisters who contributed in the fight against the heresy. The last heresy, the harlot of Babylon, etc. That is not our nature. We're not backstabbing thieves and use you when we can, then backstab you when we can't, when you're not necessary anymore. That is not the nature of True Father. And now we really see why, I can really see clearly why Father had all these leaders around him who were, they were so imperfect. Golly, they were so imperfect. I mean, they were so imperfect. They were so self-righteous. They were so convinced of their complete righteousness before God. I mean, some of them, and of course, Jamal and Lourdes are not like that. But I'm saying, I can see now why Father had different, leaders around him that we already knew they hated each other, fought with each other, etc. But he would see them not only from their ability standpoint, but he would see them also from what they contributed to him, to Father, when times were most difficult. And that counted. In the heart of God, that counted greatly. That when it was hard, that they stood forward and they stood with Father. That would cover a lot of their sins. And Father did not exclude them. Because they had played a part in the providence. And I really feel that to a new level, coming out here to the wilderness, and of course dealing with these type of scenarios, because we know when the stakes were so high, both Jamal and Lourdes. Were patriots. Both of them were. So that is very important. For from within, out of the heart of man, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murder, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, and foolishness. All of these evil things come from within and defile a man. Now, because Jamal is more vocal, people, of course, have a tendency to just say that, oh, he's the one with all the wickedness and covetousness and lewdness and etc. And, hearing him out yesterday, you have, and getting past all the emotionalism, I found, at least, Jamal is, as I always have whenever I dealt with him, he's a very logical, rational person. That's, of course, masked because he's in a scenario where he's screaming out for help. And, of course, because of his language, most people are emotionally reacting and then, of course, jumping on his back and him having to defend himself. And everybody who, says Jamal is attacking him, at least his view is that, well, they jumped on the commenting bandwagon to say, hey, he should stop with this, he should stop with that, he shouldn't curse at her, etc., things like this, without actually even understanding the scenario. And of course, so his position is that he feels justified to defend himself. Now, do I agree with all the name calling and all this kind of stuff? First of all, I don't know everything that he says. I don't follow all the posts and tweets. I've only seen a few of them. So obviously we can't make that judgment. But it is a sore part for our entire, at least our American sanctuary. So it is something that does need to move forward so that people can get on with their lives. And it's not like I understand everybody's not even focused on it. Probably most people are tuning out and etc. But we have to understand these are important important patriots. Jamal and Lourdes are important patriots. They are among the very first. Among the very first. who not only stood up for us, but worked with us here directly. You know, I'm not talking about people who, you know, maybe give some support from far away, stuff like that. I'm talking work with us directly here. And fought on the front lines directly here. You know, Jamal was one of the very first out there, literally 24/7, battling the other heretics. With Robert, for example, and just on the front line. Almost like the Green Beret team that goes in there, you know. It was among the first. Everybody was still scared to stand up to the heretic church, you know, family fraud. Everybody was still scared to call out the Hot Mother, etc. So that's of historical record. Of course, Lourdes, as well, in her own way, was among the first to get out there trying to mobilizing and etc. I don't believe she was as vocal as Jamal, right? On the internet website in the beginning?
I don't know. I don't pay attention.
You didn't pay attention at all. But in any case, these are very important pioneering, founding sort of members of the of the sanctuary movement. So it is important to have some level of closure and to understand the larger context for everybody who's just watching this or who's tangentially involved or got sucked in or whatever the case may be. It's important that we have a big heart about this issue. Understand that context. I'm sure there's a lot of emotionalism because Jamal probably pissed off a lot of people. You know, Lourdes, I know, has pissed off other people. Okay, but both of them are not fully innocent. Both of them are not fully guilty. This is not a court of public opinions. And we are a church community. We are a community, even though people may hate the word church. We are a gathering, ecclesiastia, a gathering of faithful people. We are not just a gathering of anybody. We're a gathering of people that stood up for True Father when it was the hardest to do so. You know, so that is an important thing. And these are precious people. These are very precious people. Okay? Even though they get on each other's nerves, and even though they're fighting for things to move forward, at least in their minds, we pray that God can help them both get beyond this. And of course, for the sake of our community as well, because it is consuming much, much energy. And I'm frankly getting sick of everybody coming to me, this or that person coming, talking about this or that, about the situation. It's consuming way too much of people's conversations that they're bringing to me as well. So of course, we should pray as a community for Jamal and for Lourdes. We should contextualize and remember that both of them are founding patriots. We should not have the heart of trying to throw either one of them out. That's a very petty heart, especially what both of them have gone through. Not talking with each other, but for the second king, for the three kingships, for True Father. They've both gone through hell in a handbasket. Okay? I've gone through hell in a handbasket. You've gone through hell in a handbasket. But at the same time, if you came in later than them, and if you started being vocal on the internet later than them, well, you were covered by them. They were out there on the front line, literally on the front line. If you came in later than them, you're like second wave, third wave, which is always easier. You know, Robert and Jamal were really blazing a trail for a lot of people to come in and start, you know, gathering the confidence to stand up against a family fraud. You know, Lourdes was, in her own way, doing similar things as well in the beginning. So we have to keep that in mind. So we have to pray for these precious people, you know, Jamal and Lourdes, whether you like them or not, are precious people. In the eyes of true Father, they are precious people. In the eyes of Second King, they are precious people. My children consider Lourdes an auntie, and they consider Jamal an uncle. Okay? So they're much more, they're not just regular sanctuary brothers and sisters that, and I tell my kids all the time, just anybody who claims to be sanctuary doesn't mean there's your uncle or your auntie. You know what I'm saying? There's different levels of closeness, which is just a reality. And Jamal and Lourdes, precious people. Even though they will drive different people bonkers and nuts, and sometimes they drive me nuts, and the queen nuts. Okay. But we must keep the context, okay? They're still your precious siblings. Unlike the family fraud siblings who really left Father. But they are among the siblings who stayed with True Father, even though it was painful to do so. And now, of course, that we're on the winning side, and of course that we've defeated the family fraud and their heresy and their pathetic thievery. Really, they have zero moral high ground to claim anything, because it's been exposed that they are not only heretics, not only accepting the Han Mother for power and lust of power, and totally going against principle and going against the fundamental theological core and the beliefs and the faith and the theology, and not only that, of course, stealing, and they're just a den of thieves because they have no moral high ground to claim anything. So in that scenario where they've been really upended and are self-imploding, even though they try to console themselves that they're doing fine, everybody knows inside it's a dead, dry well. And all those exploitative fundraising that they've sucked through Japan is drying up and is dead. Of course, all their leadership has been destroyed as well, because they know the money's not coming down. Some of the leaders were so vocal in proclaiming that, the Second King was a naked prince in the wilderness, whatever, now are completely destroyed. Adulterous, fallen, not only spiritually, their family lives have collapsed, become destroyed. They're getting married to outside people now, and it's just so pathetic. And that's their fundamental leadership that's doing that. You can see how decrepit and how much they've left Father's tradition. So they have no moral high ground, and of course they'll be an organization that won't even last a generation, because most of their second gen are fallen. Obviously they're fallen, but of course they're complete relatives. They're just sluts of the societal culture, and of course they never had faith in True Father anyways. So of course, as they implode and self-destruct, they want to, of course, project that upon Sanctuary and say, look, Jamal and Lourdes fighting Sanctuary, can't keep things together because they're fighting. No, we're just open and honest about our fighting. Unlike the thieves at the Family Fraud or the Quack Group, who love to fight with one another, but pretend that they never fight. You know that? They love to pretend that it, but everybody knows that each one of those leaders are vying for money lines and power and trying to sell the next real estate and providential property so they can get money off of it. I mean, this is so pathetic. At least in Sanctuary, even though when people fight, they're not fighting for those things, because they're not fighting for money and power. There are disagreements, and we allow for disagreements to happen. We allow for people to organize separately. And of course, And we don't hide the disagreements. We allow people to voice their disagreements. And frankly, we don't care if if outside eyes see it, because we understand it's the nature of the freedom movement. It's the nature of any movement. Even the freedom movement, you have people that fight with each other and disagree with one another, but they're united in their fight against tyranny. Just like sanctuary, you may have people that fight with one another, but they're united in their support for True Father and his kingship, 3 kingships. They're united there, completely united there. There are grievances that Jamal has against Lourdes, Lourdes has against Jamal, etc. But both of them, give their lives for True Father. Both of them will die for True Father. Both of them will live and die to protect his kingship. So we must keep this in context as God is helping sort these things out. And we must keep them in our prayers because they are precious people. Jamal is a very precious person. Lourdes is a very precious person. Even though they get on my nerves sometimes, so ridiculous. Oh my gosh. But you know what? All in all, when I look at it, I don't think it's petty. I don't think it's petty. I just think they're human. And I think their hearts are screaming to be recognized. Not in a bad way, but that there's been some pain that's been in their heart, and they're screaming to recognize. Not that we become relatives and, oh, it's all about feelings of it. No, come on. Everybody knows that I'm not like that. But these are precious people. And when precious people who stood up for Father when it was hardest to do, when they feel pain, that gives me pain too. And I can empathize with that because I'm not a psychopath. I can empathize. It's not like the heretics who tried to claim, oh, empathize with us because, and go along with our heresy because we're doing it because we're trying to, steal assets and hold on to positions. No, see, that doesn't really have, I don't have to empathize with those kind of people. Those are frauds, and I don't have to empathize with those kind of people. But Jamal and Lourdes, there are people who didn't come and support the Second King and my ministry and my church and my sanctuary church or ministry and our kingship and Father's kingship. They don't have to, but they did. With no benefit to themselves. Just because of the simple fact that they love True Father. And I think that's what people forget in all this. How deeply Jamal is infatuated with True Father and loves True Father. How deeply Lourdes is infatuated with True Father and loves True Father. Yes, they're not perfect. Yes, they communicate wacky sometimes. Yes, they have bad habits sometimes. Sure, that's true. But their love for True Father, their love to try to do and pursue what Father pursued and protect whom he substantiated, myself and Shinjun. This is rock solid, rock solid. So everybody passing judgment on them and everybody's taking sides, etc. Let's take a step back, see the picture, and pray for them. What kind of person are you? Claim to be sanctuary and serve the Second King and serve true Father and serve the three kingships. Yet you wish for Jamal or Lourdes to perish and to be destroyed by claiming they want that for one another, when in fact it's not the case. I've talked to both of them and it's not the case. You've probably just seen internet posts. You are a step away, even though you may be on one of the sides. You don't deal with both of them directly. So we have to suspend that kind of emotionalized, wishful thinking and or self-justification, because some people may be doing it to justify their own bad habits. So you must all be self-reflective about this issue and be honest that you are sinners too. You are not perfect before God. Before you jump on and take a side, before you jump on and judge the other, you have to understand the context and Father's perspective. Father values both Lourdes and Jamal because they were founding patriots who stood up for his son and his grandson, whom he gave the kingship to. You can't take that away from Jamal or Lourdes. No matter how much any one of them drive you bonkers. There's a time where we can use this as a time for reflection. Stop jumping on the bandwagon of emotionalism and reflect and say, hey, we're in this together, by the way. I told Jamal, I didn't have a chance to talk to Lourdes at length yesterday, so I didn't tell her yesterday. But I tell them, we're in this together. You both ain't going nowhere. We are in this together. Whether you like it or not, whether you like Jamal or Lourdes, better is irrelevant. We're in it together. So it is important to keep that context. To understand when you want to jump on one of their side because you feel it's either rational or you feel it's emotionally right or morally justified. You have to let your brain function and remind you of the historical fact that both of them were founding patriots in the fight to establish Chaniguk. You can't eradicate them because you feel self-justified by one of them, or you feel refreshed that they are speaking a certain way or acting a certain way. Don't play that childish game. I'm not a child. As you know by the Second King, I am quite insightful even though I'm younger. I'm not a bum. So don't try to play moral, righteous games with me. And don't try to play mind games with me, because I know a lot of Jedi mind tricks, too. We must keep our hearts and mind focused on True Father in this whole thing. I remember frequently Father would make, people who fought with each other repent before him in public. He would make them, come out and ask for forgiveness. Did that solve all the issues? No, of course not. But did it help remind the community that True Father was our Father and that he loved us? That even though people don't get along in different personalities with us and different styles, that still we have to have a greater parental heart. And as people take sides on Lourdes and Jamal's side, you have to remember, both the sides have to remember, that these are both people who did not betray Father. So whether you like them or not based on person, they didn't betray Father. They didn't go along with the heresy for position of power. So all the energy you may be expending on their scenario, taking sides or whatever, you could of course be putting that energy against the real heretics who actually defiled Father and colluded with the Holy Mother to try to erase him. You see? You see what I'm saying? You're getting sucked up in the emotionalism. You're getting sucked up in the habits. You're getting sucked up in their personalities. And not remembering the whole picture. So let us be, what is that, what is the Bible verse? Let's be shrewd as vipers, snakes, shrewd as snakes and peaceful as doves. Is that the scripture?
I think that's close. Wise as serpents, innocent
Wise
as
as
doves.
serpents and innocent as doves. Wise as serpents and innocent as doves. As we think about these things, because these are precious people, and Jamal and Lourdes are precious people. And to me, their hearts are precious. To true Father, their hearts are precious. Okay. Sometimes with people who are very righteous, it can be seen as self-righteousness, you know. And obviously I think both Jamal and Lourdes have a lot of self-righteousness, sure, fine. But it's not all self-serving. In the eyes of God, when it was hardest to do, they were righteous. They did stand up for the second king. They did stand up for Chanigu. They were righteous. They had the moral high ground. So we have, in this whole scenario, we do have to pray for them, that the Holy Spirit would guide each one of them to have a heart that can, at some point, forgive themselves, forgive one another, and move on to preach the gospel, to move on to spread the Chanigu Constitution. And it's so obvious. The groups may say, "Oh, but we don't want to bring anybody to. We can't bring anybody because these issues are unsettled." And no. See, that's all an excuse. That's always what Family Frauders said too. I can't bring anybody because, or I can't witness to anybody because the organization like this has to change first. But no, come on. You know that's all a cop-out. You know that's like saying there's problems in your marriage, but oh, I can't do anything about it until she changes or the marriage changes first. No, you can do a lot. You can do a lot. In fact, you doing things that help you get out of the emotionalized confrontations may actually help the marriage. Isn't that interesting? I'm saying, not, of course, not adulteresses, these and that, but things that help you do the larger macro things may actually help you clarify some of the internal things. Not always, but Many times that is the case. So we must pray for them. They are precious. They are our precious brothers and sisters. They are precious people that did not betray Father, and they're not in the third wave, fourth wave, second wave. They are in the first wave of those who stood up and publicly went out and fought to defend True Father and his kingship. Pray for them. God loves them. I love them. They're precious to my Father and to his entire line. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us. Thank you.
I'm down here at the range today. I just learned a new technique from the father of the .44 Magnum, Elmer Keith, which is called shooting out of the notch, which allows you to make really long distance shots and still have an extremely precise sight picture. So I brought my CW9 car down, and with this little gun, we're gonna shoot this little munchkin at 200 yards up in the hills, applying this technique, and hopefully we'll make the shot. To apply this technique, instead of using the blade of the front sight lined up with the top of the rear sight, I'm going to take the dot of the front sight and raise it up so that it's out of the notch, but I'm still going to keep the front sight on my target. Bringing that front sight up like that is going to compensate for the bullet drop over that excessively long distance with just this little gun. So if applied right, we should be making contact. Let's see how it goes. I saw this shot, so I'm a little bit out of breath because you gotta run to make sure that is what I thought it was, and it was. So while making this shot, from that distance with these white dot sights, it literally would cover the entire target. You couldn't see what you were shooting. So using the Elmer Keith technique, you were able to raise it out of the back notch, I can't breathe, out of the back notch, allowing you to keep your accuracy, aim, and also still see the target, which is key because it was a hard shot, not gonna lie. But yeah, it went great, and Elmer knows what he's talking about. And for such a small gun to be able to take that hit, I'm very impressed with this. All right, guys, be sure to like and share, and I'll see you out on the range. That was awesome. Hey, can I try that one? Yeah, let's see with the 380. Does everybody have eyes and ears?
So deep is washing over me. Your face is all I see. You are my
And we are back. Welcome back to King's Report this Monday, October 16th, 2017. Let's now go to the headline news. Look at this, folks. Daily Mail reports the world's youngest leader, 31 years old, wins power in Austria. Anti-EU Wonder Woozy, which means Wonder Kid, who wants to cut benefits for foreigners, triumphs in election as the far right surges to second and is poised for coalition government. Conservative Sebastian Kurz, 31 years old, is set to take power and form far-right alliance. His People's Party is forecast to reap more than 30% of the election vote, wants to cut benefits for all foreigners and slash Austria's red tape with Europe. In a move that will alarm Brussels, he wants to keep the EU out of national affairs. That's great! The leader of Austria's right-leaning People's Party has declared victory in a national election that puts him on track to become the world's youngest leader.
31.
Austrian Foreign Minister Sebastian Kurz, 31, claimed the win on Sunday night after projections gave his party a comfortable lead with more than 90% of the ballots counted. He fell well short of a majority, but has not ruled out the possibility of forming a minority government once the final results come in. The young leader, dubbed Wonder Woozy in his home country, which translates to Wonder Kid, has pledged to cut benefits for all foreigners in Austria and has vowed to stop the European Union meddling in the country's politics. You see, this sovereignty is starting to spread. Kurz, dubbed the conservative Macron due to his age and his party reform, said, "I would of course like to reform a stable government. If that cannot be done, then there are other options," adding that he planned to talk to all parties in parliament, but would first wait for a count of postal ballots that begin on Monday. That count will settle the close race for second place between the Social Democrats and Far Right Freedom Party. Here he is, here's some pictures. Look at that handsome young man who is standing up for sovereignty. And maybe and they're of course calling him foreign minister already. The projections have the People's Party getting 31.7% of the vote, a gain of more than 7 percentage points from the 2013 elections. Final results will not be available until midweek after absentee ballots and ballots cast by voters away from their home district are counted. Projections show the center-left Social Democrats receiving 26.9%, and the vote and the anti-migrant Eurosceptic Freedom Party 26%. In its victory speech, he said, "I can only say I am really overwhelmed. We campaigned for several months. We built a massive movement. We had a goal to be the first ones over the finish line on October 15th. We have made the impossible possible. Thank you for all your work and for this historic success. Today is not about triumphing over others, but today is the day for real change in our country. Today has given us a strong mandate to change this country, and I thank you for that. We were handed a great responsibility from the voters, and we should all be aware of it. We should also be aware that a lot of people have put their hopes into our movement. I can promise you that I will fight with all my strength and all my commitment for the change in this country, and I want to invite you all to come along this path together with me." What are the options now? New Austrian leader refuses to rule out taking power with a minority, but coalition with the far-right party emerges as most likely outcome. That's basically the neocons there in Austria, basically. Will they be able to take over this young man and be able to rule over him and blackmail him and or have something dirt on him? Or will he be able to create a minority government and to basically bring the Libertarian Party to power in Austria? Although I'm not fully aware of the Austrian situation. But he is a fresh face on and has gathered quite a bit of support.
Well, as foreign minister, he stopped the flow of immigrants into Austria.
Isn't that amazing? He was a young person because, of course, compared to America, Europe and Austria are being forced to take in hundreds of thousands. I mean, the total in Europe is about 10 million over the last 10 years, which is more than that. So it's absolutely devastating culturally. And of course, it's civilizational repopulation is a technique that Chinese use.
Displacement, yes.
Displacement to replace certain civilizations like Tibet. That's what they did. They gave incentives for Han Chinese to move to Tibet, basically to take it over and to make it a Han Chinese place. So I've been to Tibet. That was maybe 10, 15 years ago. And even when I was there 10, 15 years ago, at the top of the world in Himalayan mountains, it was freaking Chinese. I mean, you can get a Chinese noodle shop, Chinese everything, Chinese tea shop, Chinese, like, it's all Chinese, minus the historical landmarks of certain, Gelugpa temples and stuff like that. It's basically all Chinese now. And of course, the Chinese government did that on purpose to, in their view, they say assimilate, but really what they're doing is displacing the Tibetan culture, royal realm. Of course, this is what the globalists and the EU and the Bilderberg Group, etc., are ordering from Brussels, with Merkel as their manager there, to bring Europe to its knees and destroy any remnants of what they call right-leaning, or let's say conservative Christian elements. They don't want anything related to conservative Christian elements. They'll ally rather with radical jihadi Islam, because they have the same sexual allowances. They allow for the same sexual allowances, that is to have sex with children, as long as you, quote, marry them. That is to have multiple sexual partners. Totally satanic in their sexual ethics compared to Christianity. Okay? And of course, the globalists and the political Satanists hate Christianity because of their emphasis, and Jesus' emphasis on the type of sexual purity. Okay? And I'm not talking about the fake purity of many of the Catholic priests, while their top leaders are literally running a sex trafficking industry throughout the world. Cardinal Pelle, second in command, basically, the Vatican, being now tried for sex trafficking and pedophilia in Australia. So we know this goes up to the very top, very, 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 very top. Okay? But the political Satanists want to destroy any remnants, any vestige of conservatism, and particularly Christian conservatism, upon which conservatism is built, because they create the whole argument of natural rights and conservatism from the Creator, which gives us our natural rights. And so thus they'll develop positions on abortion, for example, that children should not just be killed because they have natural rights, right? So these kind of things are based in a Creator. They're based in an idea of a Creator giving life. Okay? And so the globalists and the political Satanists and the centralists, they know that, so they want to always uproot any vestige of Christianity, which of course is what Marx railed against, even in his own letters, and how communism should be established. One must establish a political movement that attacks Christianity and tries to uproot Christianity, lambasts all religion as the opiate of the masses, but really get rid of Christianity. Okay? So the left and the Satanists would rather ally with the radical left, would rather ally with radical jihadi Islam than to have any vestige of Christian culture remain. Real Christian culture, I'm talking about. Real Christian culture that abides by the sexual ethics that Jesus Christ laid down himself. One man, one woman. Save yourself before marriage, etc.
This has effects in other countries too.
Oh, huge effects.
France, Netherlands, Germany, these countries with the sort of right wing. It makes it okay to be right wing now.
Well, it's interesting. Look at it. Pull up a map of Austria. We're talking about right on the border of Germany. Mm-hmm. So huge influence, huge potential influence. And since Europe is, quote, one nation, Europe, you can travel from Germany to Austria quite freely. Mm-hmm. I don't think you even need a passport, right? You can just travel across.
Well,
the
they're both EU, so no, you don't need a passport.
It's like a state. It's like driving from Pennsylvania to New York or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
And by the way, when this guy says no benefits for foreigners, he's including foreigners from other EU nations.
Wow. So he's really a sovereignty-based individual.
Yeah, so it's another big headache for the people in Brussels.
Boy, oh boy, they're going to do everything to try to stop him. They're going to try to get him. He's a handsome young man.
It's getting more and more difficult.
Sending hot chicks towards him. They're going to try to make him fall into the honey holes and the honey pots. And they're going to try to get him with some sexual issues. And of course, they're gonna try to stain his Christian conservatism. So there it is. Look at that, Austria there, right on the southern border of Germany, and touching Switzerland. Switzerland is sandwiched between France and Italy there. But you can see Austria right there, touching Italy, touching Germany, touching Switzerland, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and Croatia. Okay. Estonia, is that Estonia? Slovenia.
Slovenia, oh, yeah.
Slovenia and Slovakia. Croatia, Romania, Serbia down in that Eastern Europe side. So it's interesting, even Stefan Molyneux was talking about this. It's interesting that the former communist nations are becoming champions of sovereignty and Christian conservatism. As they've, of course, left communism and become, quote, democracies, but they're still remaining conservative.
Well, during the Cold War, Austria was a kind of a neutral country between the East and West.
Yes. But I think he was talking about the rest of Poland and these other countries that are more leaning towards Russia. And it's interesting, Russia was a totalitarian state, and of course, Vladimir Putin is still a dictator there. But they are embracing conservative Christian positions. And he's supporting the family, he's giving incentives to have babies, he's blocking the homosexual political agenda from coming in, he's blocking the transgender political agenda coming in, because and I don't know, it's because he knows, but people who have any bit of common sense knows that that's how the left and that's how the political Satanists push more sexual deviance. They push for the homosexual political agenda, then the transgender, then the binary, whatever it is, then this or that sexual agenda, then the genetic attraction syndrome that they have, which is basically incest. Then what they call the minor attraction syndrome, which is the political. And they always cloak them in the eyes of, oh, this is a disease and these people can't choose and it's genetic and we have to have compassion with to understand. Are they really that bad? CNN writes in, are pedophiles really that bad? They always do this in forms of questions to try to sound academic, to try to sound as if they're big-minded and open-minded. And they're trying to sound as if they're understanding. They all sound as if they're psychologists and sound as if they're trying to be, have the moral high ground. But really what they're doing is they're using that as a trope to push forward an agenda of sexual deviance, because in the end, they are part of a cult of protection of sexual deviance, sex traffickers, sex torturers, child molesters, child violators, rapists, and in the end, killers. They are they may be lower level echelon part, but they are funded by those who want to protect those type of sexual industries. And of course, which then donate to the schools and the universities and the Harvard, Yale, Princetons, and give large campaign contributions, including, for example, the Saudi Arabian monarchy, which is a pedophile monarchy. I mean, you're talking about millions and millions of dollars given to accredited United States universities across the country. Even Brigitte Gabriel gave a whole list of them when she exposed the fact that they're now indoctrinating children to be anti-American, indoctrinating children to be socialists and communists in college, and of course in high school now, middle school. It is a brainwashing center. But getting back to the story, centrist coalition between Social Democrats and Conservatives have dominated Austrian politics since World War II, but many are deeply frustrated with the lack of progress in tax, pension, education, and administrative reform. For the Freedom Party, forming a coalition with the Conservatives would be a milestone in Europe. Here's what the two parties stand for. The People Party cap basic welfare payments for refugees at €540 a month, no inheritance tax, and introduce 1,500 euros a month minimum wage, cutting income tax on annual earnings up to 60,000 euros. The Freedom Party stands for push for Brussels to hand more powers back to member states, shut sectors of the economy to non-EU workers, cut proportion of foreign pupils in school, deport foreign convicts where they agree, stop rescue missions of refugees in the Mediterranean, cut EU influence on day-to-day governing of Austria, higher standards of integration for granting citizenships, foreigner benefits ban for 5 years. Good. Those are all good programs. Those are all good things that will incentivize people to respect Austria as an actual sovereign nation. So there he is, a young man, 31 years old. Wow. That's great. Isn't that fantastic? That's fantastic. That's really great. You know, and they have to be young now nowadays. You know, they got to compete with Hollywood. You got to compete with the mainstream media. You got to compete with the actors guilds who are they're imposters who get paid to pose as other people and to play other people. You know, so you have to have people on the God side who also have the looks, have the what is it? The star power, star quality. They're fit. They look handsome. They go against the way they try to conventionally characterize conservatives as these kind of beer-bellied, you know, hillbillies and like neo-Nazis. You know, he dresses well. He looks clean, cut. He almost looks like a globalist. He looks like a centralist. He looks like a liberal lunatic. That's what, you know, he looks like that. You know what I'm saying? But his mind, what is in between those ears is different. You know, and so conservatives, of course, are embracing that more and more. They're putting forward their most beautiful people and the young people who are pretty and handsome and letting them be the spokespeople for the conservative movement so that the young people, because young people are dumb and brain dead, they are attracted to handsomeness and beauty and physical appearance and literally are bamboozled by that when Hollywood tries to just look beautiful and young people just go, oh, that's the glamour. It's like little flies at a, what is that, fly lantern? They fly into the light. They fly into the sparkly stuff. But understanding the psychology of young, brain-dead, dumb people, that in order to even get their ear to open up to you, you have to appear as something that they want to be. And of course, this is good that they're putting forth, the sovereignty people are putting forth young people who are handsome, who are beautiful, and who can connect with the young people and the millennials so that their country doesn't get sold out and completely implode to the political Satanists. So there you go. And I'm sure in Austria the left is scowling and screaming seeing this young man, but at the same time, since they're such sexual deviants, they're probably attracted to him as well. And there he is having his makeup. Hollywood hair and makeup, man. You gotta have Hollywood hair and makeup to battle the left because they can literally strip to get people's attention. Whereas conservatives don't strip. They can literally have naked women with fake plastic surgery breast shaking their bums, you know, literally to get people's attention. But conservatives usually don't use that kind of tactic they see that as seedy and not conservative. The problem is the conservatives are way too conservatives. They become like, and so they've been positioned and the left can make fun of them as not being cool and not being open and whatever like this. Not being attractive. They don't want to be like them because if you hold those views, you know it'll be ugly and unattractive, okay? But he's business chic. He's business casual. He's showing style. His wife is fit. You know, they're a cute little couple, you know, and they're standing for conservative values. And, you know, they have to compete with the left that can literally do, you know, call in stars and Madonna and Ariana Grande literally splitting their legs open in front of thousands of people at concerts to get their attention and then use that attention that they're getting to say, vote for Hillary. You know what I'm saying? Talk about selling sex, man. The left totally sells sex and sexual power to get people to lure them in to stand up for their political agendas, which is, of course, they tie in with sexual liberation to get more centralized power, more and more communist power. The right can't do that because they stand against sexual licentiousness, right? But the way they can combat that is still be beautiful, still be handsome, still be fit, still be sexy, but be business casual, be business, you know, be professional sexy, be professional hot, be professional chic, be professional cute. You know what I'm saying? And you have to, and using that as another tool in the arsenal against the political Satanists, who can literally use sex in bikinis to get their agenda passed. So that's, of course, a trend that the sovereignty base is understanding. Look at that. Some 6.4 million people are eligible to vote in closely watched ballot, which is expected to be a tight race. And Kurt's named party leader only in May has been careful to keep his coalition options open, but he called to an end to the current alliance with the Social Democrats, forcing Sunday's snap election. As there's a resurgent right. And there you go. Look at Europe and its resurgent right. You see Marine Le Pen in France, who didn't win, unfortunately, this time. Hungary. Italy is also coming up with a more of a nationalist. Greece, Sweden, Netherlands. It's starting to rise, folks. It's starting to rise. The political Satanists know that their time is ending. And that's why, of course, they will fight back and hit back hard. So we must be ready in these final days. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us. King's Report.
Living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead. this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. Roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring, he's roaring, he's roaring like a lion.
God's not dead.
Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. You are more than my words could say. I follow you for all my days. Fix my eyes, follow in your ways. Forever free in unending grace. 'Cause you are my freedom.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Kings of Brothers, Monday, October 16, 2017. I'm your host, Hung Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk, broadcasting live from the Cheongguk Palace. And let's take a look at the Super Shelter. A lot of our ninjas will be training this in their bushcraft training this year when it gets colder. Look at this, Morris Clancy Super Shelter. Let's go to the one with the Eastern Woodlands. There we go. There's Dave right there. He's the master. Dave Canterbury right there. He is the master. He is awesome. He is the man right there. Hey, I'm living good back in the woods. There we go. Let's check out the Super Shelter, y'all. This is a Super Shelter training we're going to be doing in the winter time, so the kids can just carry small accoutrements and be able to create a tremendous, basically it's a greenhouse shelter. It's a greenhouse shelter which uses transparent material to use the radiant heat waves of the fire to get temperatures up to even 80 degrees in there in the wintertime. So if you're in an emergency, you just have that small tarp, which fits in my haversack, very small, 9 by 12. And you have a reflective space blanket, which is this small.
Lots of resources that they can use to bend and weave and make.
You can create a shelter that's extremely warm in the winter.
Put the plastic over the canopy and things like that to create a really nice shelter for the weather that they have in that area, which is much colder than it is here.
Let's
in
see the
Southeast
actual
Ohio.
dimensions
Now,
of the tarp as
temperatures
Dave
today are in
explains
the
this,
teens.
that he's
They're
using.
supposed to
This
be
is
in
a
the teens all
modified
weekend. We have an
super
intermediate
shelter for the
class
Eastern
coming at her
Woodlands.
tomorrow that will be learning intermediate Pathfinder system tasks and deliverables. And part of that is that they need to build an emergency shelter. They need to spend a night in that shelter in the woods.
Yes.
What we're going to teach them this weekend is we're going to teach them to build a modified super shelter based around the 5-minute shelter that we teach in the basic class at the Pathfinder School. So what I want to do is I kind of want to walk you through this real quick. It's a very, very simple concept. Morris Kahansky was a genius when he came up with this concept in that in a very, very cold environment, and I stress that because the shelter can be extremely hot. So you really want to be good and cold before you resort to something like this in an emergency. But
It's very hot.
for a very cold environment or an emergency overnight situation where it may be, you know, in the teens or below, down around 0, this is a very good shelter to use to keep yourself warm and keep yourself alive, at least in the short term. Now this type plastic, these cheap plastic tarps are not going to last very long, but for the short term, in the interim for an emergency, they're great. So I'm going to walk you through this real quick, and then I'm going to do a second part of this video where we actually have students putting the long fire that goes along with this shelter in front of it to heat the shelter up. We'll check how the students like it on the inside, see what they think of it, and then we'll take some more footage of them actually building shelters like this in the woods and spending their overnight in them on Sunday night of this weekend. But I wanted to introduce
Now
this to
Dave
you
does
real
a
quick
long
in this
fire with
video.
it. You can
I'll
actually
walk you
use
through what I
a
did. Very, very
Siberian
simple concept. I think you're
log
gonna like it.
fire
So, guys.
to probably shoot more heat into that. But of course, that thing gets so
Okay, so really
hot.
what we've done here is we've got a log laying in front of this thing. I shouldn't say a log, a heavy stick. So basically what we've done here is we've taken just our 5x7 space blanket. In this case, it's an SOL space blanket. we have set it up normal, just like we do for our shelters in the basic class when we put a bed of leaves in here that are about 4 inches thick or fist thick, compressed to battle conduction on the ground. I have a trash bag laying in here, and this 55-gallon drum liner would be used on top of these leaves if they were wet to create a moisture barrier from your skin so that you could then lay down on this and not get wet from the leaves. One thing that you have to remember about a shelter like this is it is going to condensate. So if you can employ something with this shelter that will help absorb some of that condensation, you're better off. But in an emergency, when you only have a space blanket and possibly some kind of a painter's drop cloth, and this one is a 2 mil painter's drop cloth, that's 9 by 12. It was about $4.
Okay, see, he used a 9 by 12.
Store. And then we have an SOL 5 by 7 space blanket like we saw on our website. We've got it set up in normal configuration that I've showed many, many times as a 5-minute shelter. Then we've taken this plastic and we've just draped it over the top pretty much, just like this. And I have gathered up the ends, and I'll show you how I did that. Staked it down in the back, basically right on the same stakes that I staked this shelter itself on, pulled everything else to the front. Now what I do with that is, I'll take this stick and I'll put it in the front of the shelter just like this. That gives me the ability to roll this up like this, up against that bed, to stretch that plastic out and make it tight. And that's going to give me the best heat inside this shelter, but it also makes it very easy to get out of in case there's an issue or an emergency. You can get out of the shelter very easy just by rolling this stick up on the ground in front of it. And then of course your fire's out here. We'll talk about that later on. Let's talk about the sides real quick. So what I did here on the sides is, basically I just put a ball in this corner. You could use a rock or just tie a knot in the corner, whatever the case may be. And I've got a stake right here. And this gives me a door to get inside. And the other side is set the exact same way. So this actually clips to here once you're inside the shelter. And then this other front side has another tie-out loop on it that I can either tie to it or I can just tuck it inside like this. Again, this log gives me that easy escape route, or that stick rolled up in there gives me that easy escape route. You're going to have a little bit of airflow in there because you don't want to seal yourself into an airtight tomb, obviously. You've got to get oxygen in there, and you're going to fill that thing with carbon monoxide breathing in and out. So you've got to have a little bit of airflow through there, but you don't want much because you want to trap as much heat as possible. So this works out pretty well. You can just tuck the front end.
This was developed by Morris Klansky, who's in the arboreal forest in Canada.
The corners. That's
and he's in a very frigid environment.
Basically the excess of the 9 by 12.
And this was a super shelter that
like
he
Like I
developed.
said, on the back
He's a
side,
survival
all
expert
we did was
up there.
Just took a ball and tied it in there.
He's a legend. He's
Just
like 80.
that.
He's like 80 or 90 years old
Hooked
now.
that on to our stakes.
But he's still training people.
Pulled it tight to the front to roll it up, and that's what gives it the stretch right here. It's really not connected to anything on the ridge line itself. It's just draped over the top, pulled tight on the back, and then rolled up in the front. So the design of this shelter by Morris Klansky basically takes advantage of the radiant heat from the fire, takes advantage of convection inside the shelter by trapping the heat inside this plastic, reflecting that radiant
It's basically a small
off the
greenhouse,
space
okay?
blanket.
And you use the
Because it's
fire
trapped in there, it
as
becomes
the
convective.
sun element, the
So
plasma
you are
element,
battling
which
conduction
basically
by putting a
allows
leaf
the
bed
radiant
inside,
heat waves to pass through the
taking advantage of the
transparent
radiant heat from the fire,
fibers of the
which will be
plastic.
one step
One of the
away
common
from
mistakes
front
is
of
making the
shelter,
fire
and you'll put
too
the fire
big
in here
and
as
too
long
near.
as the shelter is.
And that, of
We'll talk
course,
about
then
that
burns
for
holes
part
into
2
your
as well.
thing.
And then
So I'm thinking,
taking advantage of
you know, they
convection
use
by trapping
the
heat
long
inside
fire here.
and rolling it around.
But whenever I use
like
long
the
fires
space
on these kind of shelters, they
This is a very,
burn
very
through the
brilliant
plastic so
design
bad.
by Morris
So I'm thinking
Klansky
of moving the fire
for an
about
emergency
double the
shelter.
space
Now, when I
back
do
and
something
make what's
like this,
known
I
as a
have to try to
Siberian log fire.
operate out of that for the
And
long fire,
that
maybe a
shoots the
week.
heat out
No, I
straight
wouldn't.
into you.
But for an emergency
Okay.
kit that I was going to carry with me in very, very cold
So
weather,
we'll have to
like
test
this
those
summer
out
hunting
this
trip or something
winter
like that,
time as it gets
and when we're
colder.
going in for the day,
And we gotta get-
possibly could get stuck. You know,
We got to get the
emergency space
kids
blanket doesn't weigh hardly
training this type of shelter,
drop cloth
which is a
doesn't
great
weigh
emergency
hardly
shelter. If you know the system,
So as long as I've got that,
even in an
so
emergency in the
process
wintertime, you
would
can
to make
still
steaks
enjoy
and
the
things of that
outdoors
nature I
with
can
your
set
family,
this
with your
shelter up
friends,
with the minimum,
in
having
your
a
training,
trash bag in there as well,
and still have a
I
safety
can sleep
backup
in that
just in
shelter
case
with proper
you got
fire,
injured and get
just my
hypothermic and you're
clothes,
about to die.
As long as I am dressed properly
You have
for
something
the
that can keep you
environment. If I add a wool blanket
super
to
warm,
that,
like
then
80
it's
degrees
a whole
warm
different level
in
of
like
comfort
minus 30.
inside that shelter. And we'll show
It
you that
can get
more
really
too.
hot, really
But I
hot
just
in
wanted
there.
to show you this. There's been a lot of videos out there and things I've seen on the internet.
Now let's
about
fast forward.
super
I
shelters.
believe he has
I've
some of
even
his
seen a couple
students
that
come
were
in here.
very
Let me
similar
see.
to this, but
Is
I
there
wanted to
anybody
show
like-
you how the 5-minute shelter works
No,
into
maybe
the
not.
super shelter
He doesn't have
within
people
the
going
Pathfinder
there.
system for a very, very cold environment. And it's
No,
easy
he
to
doesn't
add this
have-
to
I
your
don't think he has
emergency
people
kit
going there.
for a very cold
But anyways,
weather
this system,
environment
this is
and
just a
take
modified
advantage of this
lean-to
to give you that
super
extra
shelter.
amount of
Morris
security
Kohansky
for
does it
an
like on these domes. He creates domes and then puts them on to let the sunlight and everything, to, basically even in the daytime it heats up by itself. Dave is of course using it in a lean-to type system, but this is a great system. This is a really great system, super lightweight in the short term, not a long-term system, but super, super, super lightweight, super, super hot in the summertime. I'm sorry, wintertime. But of course, you have to be careful you don't get pneumonia, because if there's too huge temperature fluctuation, your lungs can't adapt to that quickly. And so if it's like super cold outside and super hot inside, and you keep going back and forth, you can actually get pneumonia.
Yes.
So you gotta watch out in that respect. I would just suggest have more ventilation. If the fire is getting too hot, just have more ventilation, and you'll allow that temperature to drop to maybe 60 or 70, something a little more comfortable.
You have natural air conditioning here.
Yeah, if you didn't have and there's a lot of condensation in those kind of shelters, but if you didn't have any blankets or sleeping bags or anything, you could pile up leaves and go in the leaves. Granted that you're in a cold environment, because then the bugs would not be there. You could go, oh, here it is. Super Shelter Part 2, I think, here, there we go, there's Dave. Yeah, put that video up.
It's not going to reflect. We call these reflectors.
Now he's got a whole student base there that will also go in as well.
When the log wall gets heated up, you're getting some benefit from that heat. So you're almost heating that log wall up, really not reflecting anything off of it. To reflect the heat, it would have to have a mirrored surface, and it doesn't. So
There's Dave Wowak. He's a Pennsylvania Pathfinder certified
But it
instructor.
needs to be the length of the shelter. That way you get the same amount of heat at the back as you do at the front. And you don't need to feed it a lot. Now you can take this log I've got in the front here, and you could actually roll this to the inside instead of I've got it rolled to the outside for this demonstration. But if you had this rolled on the inside, theoretically,
I think
you
that's
just
too
lift this
close.
up
That's too close. That's gonna
and
burn
feed the
holes in
fire
that,
without having to get out of the shelter.
especially as that thing gets
Okay.
bigger.
But the key is
I would do it a little further
to
away.
trap that heat inside, but you've got to give yourself a little bit of release for the carbon dioxide. So you can regulate the heat inside there by opening up these sides a little bit and letting some air flow in and out of there. What I want you guys to do is I want you to take turns getting inside the shelter. Just get inside from that end. I want you to feel what it feels like inside here, because a shelter like this weighs less than
Look how hot it's already in getting in
you
there.
can carry in your pack. All
You
have
can
to
see the
have
leaves getting
2 or 3
condensated
mil
on the bottom.
9
See
by-
that?
This is a 9x12, I think.
They're condensating.
Painter's tarp from the hardware store is $4. And the space blanket's like $20. Roll that up at the cordage. And as long as you got your axe, even if you get into a crappy situation, you can sleep through the night like this. And what we're gonna do tonight is, I would like to build one of these for every 2 people. Stay in the teams that you were in the other day when you did the nav exercise, and one person can stay out here beside the fire and feed the fire while the other person sleeps for 2 or 3 hours, and then you guys can switch out. That way, that person never has to get out of here to feed the fire until they're gonna be out of there for a couple hours. The disadvantage to me with a shelter like this is, number one, it's gotta be stinking cold. Because when you get in this shelter, you're gonna feel, it's probably 75 in this shelter right now, and we just started this fire 20 minutes ago. So
It's too
gonna
hot.
be 90 in here within no time at all. It's gonna be 90 degrees.
That's the
inside
problem.
Shelter. You're not gonna wanna sleep like that and then get out of that to feed the fire and get back in and get out and get in and get out, because you're gonna catch pneumonia. I would much rather be comfortably cold when I'm sleeping, and be 50 to 60 degrees. And you can control that a little bit with this fire. And as the fire goes down, it's gonna cool down inside.
Or the
But eventually
ventilation
you still got to
inside.
Get out of that.
By just
70 or 80
ventilating more,
degrees
you
without feeding the fire
could
for
be
a little
able to,
while, and go back up,
you should be able to
and
control that
do a
temperature.
team exercise.
Although it's gonna take a
One
little
guy's
finicking
sleeping, one
to
guy's
do.
feeding the fire.
The first time you'll always be
You guys
better,
would
the second
off.
time you'll be better,
There's plenty
third time
of
you'll be
things
better,
right
even
here
better.
For the guy who's feeding the fire, you know, you can sit here and
And the
walk
nice thing
around
about these kind of survival
keep your body
techniques
core temperature
is that you
regulated
don't have to do them a
easy
lot.
just like
They are
that. Guy
perishable
here
skills,
is gonna sleep
but you have
on the
to understand
Well,
the
what you guys
basic
do is kind of
concept,
take turns
the science
throwing
behind
that
it.
in the shelter and get in there for, I don't know, 2-3 minutes, or until you can't stand it anymore, and then get out and let the next guy in. So you understand the power of the shelter.
So let's see some of the guys' reactions as they get in it.
You can use this slit here as like a thermometer. You get a little too warm, just crack this open.
How warm is that, dude?
Oh my goodness. I can sleep like a baby in here, man. Oh yeah.
Well, you have to take turns.
The other problem you've got with shelters like this is you have to regulate the condensation, okay? If you're just using plastic and Mylar, you're gonna have condensation inside that shelter. Anything wet you put in there for material like leaves for the ground for your leaf bed or anything like that, 'cause you really need a 4-inch leaf bed inside this shelter, compressed. The only way you're gonna get true, be able to battle conduction thoroughly is to have 4 inches of compressed material in there to separate you from the ground. Otherwise, the ground's gonna start robbing heat from you. So you gotta put a pretty good sized pile of leaves in there about this high before you lay on it, then it's gonna crush down. So I generally just fill that thing up. 2 trash bags what we used, I think, when Jeremy and I were working on this. We used 2 full 55-gallon bags of leaves inside here and then squashed it
So
down.
about 100 gallons of leaves.
What are you thinking, brother?
Wow. Too hot for me in here.
That's the way I am, man. This is way too hot of a shelter for me. But for someone who's not used to being out in the cold, or for someone who is not prepared for an emergency, you know, maybe you got wet or something like that, to build a shelter or to be able to build a shelter like this.
Yeah,
can
it's a
do a lot
lifesaver. If
for
you're
you
wet,
on a really, really
if you're
cold
wet in a
night.
survival situation, boy,
Okay, we're out
that
here
would be a
on,
lifesaver.
Day 3 of the intermediate class.
Has to be transparent. If it's not transparent, the radiant heat of the fires cannot go
This is what I
through.
would call a proper wood pile.
That's why
Overnight.
greenhouses are
Got
transparent.
about a pickup truck load over there, and we got a
You know,
long
but basically
fire
it's
going
greenhouse
right here.
technology, but it uses the
instructors
space blanket
just
reflective
sleep beside
material
the fire on the ground.
to reflect even more heat back onto you.
Gonna set up too much
See what I'm
tonight, so we
saying?
gotta keep fire
So it's
watching
not only the
somebody
greenhouse
else.
effect, it's also
My
the
concern
radiant
is
fire
that
heat
the
and
rest
the
of these guys,
reflective
and they're working in 4-man
silvery
teams,
material
don't have near this much.
on the backside of the shelter, exactly, which is then shooting it and creating this hot cycle. So it's a very,
Well, Matt Mahoney over here, getting his fire going, working on some fat wood right now.
it's
There are a lot of
interesting,
fat wood,
interesting, isn't it?
some fat wood and a ferro rod.
Now you can see with this, a lot of the guys end up, through the night, they
set
end
up.
up burning their shelters because they make the fire
Good
too
size wood
close.
pile going here.
That's a proper wood pile right there.
Not quite
People
big
don't understand
enough,
how
we're
much
still
wood you
collecting.
burn
We got a
through.
good
That's a
pile
proper
of
wood
leaves
pile.
inside that shelter.
That's gonna
We're
last
gonna
you the night.
Go with the super shelter concept tonight.
People just grab a
One
couple
person in,
sticks
one
and they're like,
person out.
oh,
Another shelter over
it's
here
gonna
is
last you
not
10
even close
minutes.
yet. It's gonna be
You
one
know,
person
fast
and one
fire,
person
eat
out.
wood.
We'll have 2 people feeding the fire while 2 people are
So the
asleep.
Pathfinder school system,
be a pretty
basically
easy
they teach
night
you
if
one
they prepare
truckload of
correctly.
wood per night. So if you think you have enough wood, 5 times
About
more is what you need to bring.
Tenth of a truckload of wood here.
When you think, I think that'll last me, get 5 times
A little
more.
more wood over there.
That's good
One
training right
shelter
there.
set up in here with a space blanket underneath it, underneath the oilskin tarp, clearing out an area
Under the
for fire.
oilskin, that wool
Guy's got
blanket,
a nice thick wool blanket from Pennsylvania. He's gonna be nice and toasty tonight.
that's
no
Dan
matter what.
Woolwack right there.
2 young boys here from Indiana, trying to get
See,
it
they're
rocking.
using the really cheap Mylar blankets, but that's the one you can
Little to
use.
nothing, but that's okay. That's what
Not,
it's all about.
you know, you would
Got
use that,
Mylar
tape it to the
blanket set up,
backside of
get
your
a fire
tarp.
going.
I wouldn't use
Get
it
bed
as the
leaves
tarp
in
like
there,
that
it'll be
because that would
all
be
right.
too
They got a
weak.
little blanket.
And that thing will rip so easy in a little bit of wind. So you could just tape it to your 9x12 painter's drop cloth,
All right,
which has a
boys,
lot
what
more
do you think?
strength
Are we
to it.
smoothing it over here? Totally smoothing it? You got,
In our socks, making some hot chocolate.
nice,
Roll down very nice.
nice. So
Oh
nice long
man,
fire
that's,
going there.
that's good living
Two
right there,
big
baby.
piles of fire
That's
over there.
good
Got super
living.
shelter on that side, modified
That's
shelter over here,
good
space
living.
blanket
Look at
inside of
them.
an oilcloth.
Look at them
Big leaf bed in there.
bushcrafters, man.
Man, oh man.
Dang. That's some good living. Hey, I'm living good.
On your fire.
Back in the
But it's
woods.
locking a lot of the heat in because you got it blocked over there and blocked over here.
How does
You're
that song
locking a lot of
go?
heat in there. You're sitting around that fire. You're smoothing it, man.
Ain't none left but the
job, boys.
How does that song go? It's such
Over
an
here at
awesome
the old
song.
instructor camp, you want to talk about smoothing it.
It totally
Look at
fits
the cold
Dave's
bed.
style, man, that song. He used to have that as an intro
The side
song
meat in that
until I
frying
think they started
pan.
charging him for it.
Golly.
But man, it was so
Nice
good.
long
That song was
fire.
so perfect.
We laid out here. Like a
What are
bunch
the
of
lyrics of that
catfish on the
song?
beach here
I'm living
later on.
good.
Look at this.
Back in the
Amount of
woods.
side meat. Golly.
Oh, there, that's it, that's it.
Christopher Wick
Go ahead, keep playing that.
on the skillet. Mr. Baxter in the background over there. Jeremy James setting up
Go ahead,
his
keep playing that.
camp
Back
there.
in the Woods by Bad Horse.
Man.
Bad Horse. Okay, that's it. Hey, I'm country.
So young man, how come you're out
Backwoods
shooting
and
stuff
hungry.
out there? You just woke up.
I spend every Sunday just living good. Might do a little fishing,
Got tired of laying down.
a little hunting on the evening, on the weekend.
How's Miss Sierra doing there? She been stirring?
With a bow, I've been sneaking back in the woods.
How warm is it in there, Sarah?
Little bit crazy.
Well, that's all right.
Every now and then I maybe
It's pretty early.
like to
fall
kick
asleep.
my boots off and get lazy. I'm living good.
Good.
Hey, I'm living good. Like a redneck Robin Hood. Hey, I'm living good. Back in the woods. That is such a dope song, man. It's such a good Dave Canterbury song because he's always hunting in the back country. You know, here's the next one. That's at a mile or so
Good.
at the end of the dirt road.
Good, good. I like to hear
There's a place us country folk
it.
go to have a good time, yeah. A beer and a bonfire,
That's too big, huh?
chains on a mud tire. Jumping rabbits through the barbed wire. Under the moonlight. Down by the river bend. Living life like it should have been. These days won't ever end. I'm living good.
Wow.
Hey, I'm living good.
Drive you out.
Like a redneck Robin Hood. Hey, I'm living good. Back in the woods. Oh, dang, that brings back some memories, man. Dang. Like Dave, his videos, he ran into some copyright issues with
Maybe
that.
we're at the instructor camp.
Because he doesn't play those anymore. He doesn't play that song anymore. Go ahead, you can turn that
Starting
up.
up here.
He doesn't play that anymore
Probably
as his
still rock and
intro.
rolling.
But man, those lyrics like
Chris
totally
hooking up some
fit
coffee over here.
the Pathfinder style. Because they do a lot of
tripod.
trapping, a lot of hunting, and Dave is
would-be fire
who was
pile
like
from
a
last
champion
night.
archer.
Has went from
But he's a
truckload to
survivalist,
about
so
5 or 6 logs.
he's not this like greeny little
Still
vegetarian
got a good big
survivalist.
fire here though. We just
This
stoked it
dude
back
knows
up.
how to do it. He needs to know
Yeah,
how to
we're
get.
just
He knows how to
about
get
ready for
meat
that,
on the
I'd say.
table too. You know what I mean? He knows how to smooth it in a survival situation
Nice back,
or an
6 o'clock,
apocalypse
instructor
situation.
camp.
So that song
ready to
just like,
get all the folks
oh
up
my
out there
gosh,
in
it fits him
super
so
shelters.
good. I love that
Buddy
song,
Kevin
man. It just
Baxter
reminds
over
me
there.
of Dave and
Pulling a Simon
the
Kenton
Pathfinder
against the
guys.
tree
Look at that
there.
cool wool hoodie, man.
Up
That
there.
that instructor made.
I've been sleeping right here on this little blanket shard all night.
But
If you dress
man,
properly for the weather and you got a good fire, you really don't have to have a shelter.
yeah,
Starting to
with
get some
that
pretty
kind
good
of,
snow right now.
I mean, Dave
Jeremy
is
Jane,
awesome.
Chris Wicker camped right
He's just
there
sleeping on a
together.
wool shard.
Go over see how everybody's doing this.
It's snowing. Dave is just sleeping on a wool shard. He's badass, man. That boy's big. He's a grandpa, man. He's the coolest grandpa. He's like 60-something years old. He's a super cool grandpa. His
doing
grandkids
this
think
morning,
he's
sir?
the coolest grandpa. He's all
all right last
tattooed
night?
up. And he's
No
like,
problem, huh? Good.
he's always playing with knives and axes, and he's just this
Miss
massive.
Sierra, how'd you do last night?
Oh my God. Hey, that was a lone
Very good,
girl
okay.
doing survival training. Good for her. Kudos to her.
Cold.
She's doing great, and she actually got to do a little
How was that
training in the
shelter?
super
Was
shelter.
it warm enough?
You guys got to do some training in super
Blanket
shelter
warm
this
enough?
winter.
Matt, how'd you do, buddy? Stumbling out this
Hey, understand the super
You all right last
shelter
night?
technology.
Sarah, this is only what, the second time you've ever camped out in your life?
That's gonna be some good training.
Well, you picked a good time to do it, that's for sure.
But now check this out. As they go to the morning session,
How'd you do last
you
night?
guys can
young
fast
man?
forward just a little bit here.
Good?
Go to the morning session. Oh, they're in the morning session. Okay, there we are. Look at that. Some of the shelters got holes
Nice white
totally
covering on the
burned
old
through.
oilskin this morning. You guys
Think
do
it's
all
this
right last night? Get some sleep? Good?
So that long
Nice.
fire works good. But if you didn't,
Still got
they're
one guy in
sharing it. That's why they're making a long
shelter
fire.
over here and one
They're
guy
sharing
stumbling out
with
over
two
here.
shelters.
Not too shabby.
If they did it
All right,
with the
get ready to pack 'em
Siberian
up.
fire,
Still got plenty of firewood left,
man,
that's a
look at
good
how much.
sign.
Look at how much gas
Nice.
fuel they got, man.
Nice.
They are smoothing it out there, baby. Woo wee, woo wee. You're in a place, of course, with a lot of wood. So if we do that with a lot of kids, we gotta probably do that at the factory land because there's a lot more land and a lot more wood to collect. And that would be a good way to get that survival training in with the ninjas as it gets colder. And I think we should do it before the super winter because that would be a little dangerous. But we can do it as it drops below freezing and the snow just starts. Probably that's a good time to start it. Now let's go do Hope Igarashi's report from Las Vegas on the ground on the second shooter theory. And she is reporting live. She actually produced this video a couple of days ago, but we were not able to play it until today. Let's go to Hope and Ted Igarashi's report from Las Vegas.
Hi, this is Hope Igarashi in Las Vegas, Nevada. Today is October 12, 2017, and it's my honor to be a guest of the King's Report with our king, Hyunjin. Here in Las Vegas, as you know, we suffered a horrific mass shooting that took place 12 days ago on October 1st. Right now, there is a theory that there is a second shooter, or maybe more. Find that through acoustic analysis, we find that there could have been a second shooter. What we're going to do today is, along with my husband, Mr. Igarashi, we're going to take you to some different locations where the theory is that the second shooter could have shot from the roofs of these different locations. One location is the Catholic Church, which is behind me. As you can see, this is the Rainier Most Holy Redeemer Catholic Church. You can see the roof is very high. You can see there is police presence. Behind me is Magdalene Bay.
There's a police presence right there.
It's cut off. We have this cut off. No one can enter that area all the way over to the AM and PM Arco gasoline station. So let's walk over to this. Okay, here we are in front of the concert where the concert took place for the Route 21.
Oh, interesting.
Festival,
That's the
Harvest Festival.
concert venue.
There's police presence. Everything's roped off.
Wow.
Over here we see Magdalene Bay.
That's a
And
crime
then
scene
it's
now.
roped off
There's
all
Mandalay
the
Bay
way
right in the
up
back. See
to
that? In the gold building?
AM/PM Arco station.
And there's a Luxor.
Which is another
So that's where the shooting
area
took place,
that
right there.
A second shooter, if there was one, could have been on the roof of one of these buildings. So we're going to continue on, and my husband will explain a little bit more from his view. Thank you.
Hi, this is Ted from the Las Vegas. Yeah, you can see the AM, PM convenience store and Arco gas station. One of the theory is that there might be a shooter on the roof, be able to shoot the crowd. But you can see this AM, PM grocery convenience store is open 24/7. So I'm not sure if anybody on the roof shooting, people probably realize it. Okay, so I'm reporting from the Las Vegas. Okay, we're in the Oasis apartment store behind me. There's another theory that
That's another potential place. That looks like an apartment complex. Look at that.
Also, in my right side, you can see two gas tanks that shoot shot at this gas tank to blow up. You can
Oh,
see.
those are gas tanks.
Okay,
He was trying to blow those up.
Go around, you can see
Airplane fuel.
Yeah, airplanes, yeah.
Because that's an airport.
Yeah.
But those things apparently don't blow up so easily. So they're not going to just blow up by
Look at the
a
crowd
few
in the
bullets.
Few bullets, yeah.
Okay.
There's a dirt mound that
You
the
can see.
that
Now
the health
that there's a
ranger talked
concert
about.
over here.
Potential
See
place.
the stage behind me.
Yep, there's a stage right there. About 200 yards away.
91 Harvest concert. That's the stage over there.
Wow, what a
See
horrific
Mandalay Bay.
terrorist
Only
attack.
the window was punched
There's Hope
out,
and Ted
so there is no
broadcasting from the ground zero of the attack.
All right, thank you very much.
32nd floor, Mandalay Bay right there.
Hi, this is Hope. We're going to be signing off. My husband and I, thank you for your attention. We wish we could have shown you more of what's going on at Mandalay Bay and go in there, but there's a lot of restrictions. In fact, we were even by the police asked to leave when we were at the Oasis apartments. But
Wow.
we're glad we could share a little bit of what's going on here. Thank you for your prayers. The spirit in Vegas with the communities is strong, and people are binding together. But of course, there's a somber feeling. We don't have as many tourists as we would like now. However, we know we're going to get stronger. And let's just pray for our nation, that our nation can come together. And we just thank you for everyone. We offer this and thank you. I'm happy to be on the King's Report. This is Hope Igarashi with Ted Igarashi signing off. Thank you.
All right, Hope and Ted, thank you so much for that beautiful report and update from the ground. Hey, they were on ground zero at the Las Vegas a horrific site of the mass terror shooting, the biggest terror shooting in American history. So thank you for cataloging that for the report. Hope and Ted, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back after this. Stay with us.
My Savior, Redeemer, lifted me from the miry clay. Almighty, forever, I'll never be the same 'cause you came.
sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Our God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion.
God's not dead.
Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival.
Our God's not dead, he's surely alive.
He's living on the inside, roaring fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring, he's roaring, he's roaring like a lion.
God's not dead.
Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like
You took me from the wayside, called me alone, thrown me off and carried me home. Jesus, you're all I want.
And we are back. Welcome back to Games Report this Monday, October 16, 2017. Saying here, we're reporting live from the Chenegung Palace. And today we are joined by our special guest, Zachary King. Mr. King writes in a personal bio, I've been a Satanist for over 26 years at the point of my conversion in January 2008. A lady handed me a blessed miraculous medal which resulted in Mary appearing and leading me to her son, Divine Mercy Jesus. At the end of that encounter, the Blessed Mother told me that my job was to help her to end abortion. Around 2013, our ministry started working on a DVD project called Abortion is a Satanic Sacrifice. The project eventually turned into a CD project that the CD transformed from 1 disc to 2 discs in 3 parts. There were 3 things I wanted to add to the CD, but I did not. I have since then added them to the transcript and added 3 observations to this transcript, plus an endorsement letter of our ministry from Reverend Frank Pavone. Now, we heard about, of course, Mr. King is continued to work on this, this ministry. He says in his personal bio, we totally rely on God's providence and you. So the support of his project is absolutely critical. Now, I first heard about Mr. King. I think somebody in the congregation sent me his story. First off, I want to thank you so much, Mr. King, for joining us this morning. I heard about your story from one of our members in the congregation. And what an amazing story. Wow. Very unique, and 26 years you were a practicing Satanist, eventually then turning to Christ. Could you share a little bit about that story and your history with our audience this morning?
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Well, you know, really, as much as I was a horrible human being growing up and, 26 years involved in Satanism, the story isn't really about me being a Satanist. It's about the power of God, and how that no matter how bad of a person you are, no matter what you've done, God can forgive you. That we worship a mighty God. That as much as he is 100% justice, he is also 100% mercy and love. Because clearly none of us deserve salvation.
Yes.
Myself is right out there in the forefront with all the rest of the horrible sinners. None of us deserve what God gave me. So at 10 years old, at my school, all the kids played a game called Bloody Mary, where all the kids go in the bathroom, flick off the light, and chant something in the mirror. And then if you do it right, it's what you're told, the spirit of a burn victim will show up in the mirror. And the first time we did it, the spirit of the burn victim shows up. Now, that's actually a demon and not the spirit of a burn victim. And 49 kids ran out of the bathroom screaming. One child, one idiot of a child, now I can call this child an idiot because it was me, stayed in the bathroom and thought, oh, that's the most amazing thing ever. I chanted a phrase a couple of times and it showed up. Notes were sent home saying that if we did this, if we were caught at school, because kids were starting to get hurt doing this, if you were caught at school doing this, you'd be suspended for 3 days. So I didn't want to get suspended, so I started playing the game at home. And at the same time as that's going on, Dungeons and Dragons had come out a couple years prior, And I played that every weekend. So I did campaigns of Dungeons and Dragons, and I was always a wizard or a sorcerer in that, and just trying to do magic. And I kept asking my parents and my Baptist preacher, is magic real? Is this something you can really do? Because I'd seen all the movies that have magic in them, and magic was the coolest thing in the world. Magic showed people that could levitate. And when you're a kid, levitation is flying. Everybody wants to know how to fly. And, everybody said no, magic was fake. You couldn't do that. Not knowing that, oddly, there's like 30 verses in the Bible that tell you not to do magical things. Now, why would God tell you not to do something if it was impossible to do? It's like in the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not lie. But if you couldn't lie, that commandment wouldn't be there. Thou shalt not kill. If it was impossible to kill somebody, that commandment wouldn't be there. It's, an example of that is that we don't have speed limit signs on the road that say don't go 700 miles an hour. Well, no one can go 700 miles an hour. So that's not a law. So don't do these magical things. In the Old Testament, if you did these things, you were stoned to death. In the New Testament, you don't inherit the kingdom of God. Like there's no good option. And God doesn't make a distinction between white and dark magic or light and good. It's like all magic is bad. You can't do any of it. But my parents did not know those verses existed. Or if they knew them, they misinterpreted them. But, they thought, no, this is impossible. You can't do this. So when I discovered, I was playing D&D and I was doing the Bloody Mary game, and I just kind of thought, I wonder if I could do a magic spell in real life. Like, what would happen if I did something in real life? Now, you have to understand that I'm a nerd at this time. I'm probably still a nerd, but I was a serious nerd, and I'm already made fun of for stuff every day. I don't need to tell them, hey, I'm going to go home and do a magic trick so I can get made fun of even more. So I got to keep that secret to myself, and I decide I don't want to hurt anybody. I just want to try a simple magic spell to see if it works. I mean, if it works, that'd be awesome. I'd be on top of the world. And I decided to do a magic spell for money, see what happens. I did a spell for money on like a Friday night. Saturday, I went out and found a can of tennis balls and a $5 bill. And I thought, all right, that's pretty cool. But that could have been a coincidence. Somebody had to find that. So the next Friday, I did it again. And the next Saturday, I went out and I found a $10 bill on the side of the road. And I'm like, all right, $15, 8 days. That ain't bad. But that could have been a coincidence, too. I'm a hard sell as a kid. So I go into the bathroom the next Friday, and I do my magic spell. Halfway into it, I do the Bloody Mary chant. The face appears, and I make sure it knows I'm doing a spell for money. The next day, I go out and I go play. And I'm in this large unpaved parking lot, and I find what looks like Monopoly money rolled up tight in rubber bands. So I put that in my pocket, and I go about playing. Later that night, everybody's in bed asleep, and I'm in my bedroom. Lights are out. I'm under the sheets. I've got a flashlight in my mouth, and I'm unraveling this treasure I've got. I unraveled all the rubber bands, and it looked like Monopoly money because I'd never seen a $100 bill. When I unraveled everything, I had 10 $100 bills. And at this moment, I know beyond a reasonable doubt that magic works. Magic is real. Magic is something I can do every day. In my 10-year-old thought process, I thought, the car that I wanted more than anything in the world was a Lamborghini Countach. And it was like $325,000. So in 325 days, I could buy this car. Now, I'm not thinking about the semantics of how do I get to the Lamborghini store? How do I talk my dad into saying, Dad, I have $325,000. I want to buy this car. I don't know about insurance. I can't even drive the car. It's like there's all these different things about the car that I don't realize. When you're a kid, you just don't know. But I know that I could do this spell every day for 3 years and be a millionaire, and this was now my goal because magic works. And I know something that adults don't know.
Right? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Right.
It's the same package that the devil sells now, But you know, the devil pre-packages his deals for the age group, or you know, whoever is in need of whatever he thinks he wants to give them. You know, and nothing he gives you is free, and nothing he gives you is worth it.
Yes.
You know, I tell people a lot of times, you know, I was given the bright, shiny box. And when you open that box, dude, it's covered in like beautiful lights and glitter, and it's just incredible. And you kind of hinted, don't examine that box too closely, you know, because you might get hurt. You know, you don't want to, you know, touch something that's bad or whatever. And you don't realize that the reason that he doesn't want you to examine that box is that if you do, you'll realize that those lights on the outside are fake. And that glitter, a child could have gotten from Walmart. And those gold bars that are inside there are really like gold-colored aluminum foil covering dog poop. You know, and it's like, oh, this isn't at all what I thought it was. You know, but I mean, you know, you're 10 years old. But honestly, what do you know at 10 years old?
Wow.
You know, and this is just before you become a teenager, you know, and as a teenager, we all know that if you're a teenager, you know everything in the world, and no one can tell you anything. And you know, I went through that phase as well when I was a teenager. It was funny, when I became an adult, I was like, man, I was dumb. You know, like, what was I thinking? And my parents were so intelligent, and I didn't know that when I went into teenage years. I thought my parents were like dumb as bricks, you know, and how could they be so uncool?
Right.
You know, and then realizing when I got, you know, the older I got, the smarter my parents got.
Now, this is interesting because you say that you were, just as a young child, you were kind of nerdy and you were into D&D and sort of trying to get into the occult and into this magic, I guess with a K, and trying to get sort of, you know, supernatural powers. And this is this allure, and there's this Bloody Mary game that kind of brings you into that sphere. Now, when you became a teenager, I think you wrote in one of your bios, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was also sexual rituals that they would lure boys into to perform and have a young girl get impregnated. Is that true?
Yes, you're combining a few things, but and I was impressed that you knew about the magic with a K. You know, that was started by Aleister Crowley, who decided that if you spelled it with a K, that would differentiate satanic magic from innocent stuff like card tricks or, you know, illusion.
Oh, interesting.
So magic with a C is pretty harmless. Magic with a K is satanic magic. So we had, at 11 years old, I had become a victim of a sexual assault at school, and it was at the hands of a female teacher. She told me that you like to do this. It was my idea, and if I told anybody, I'd get in trouble. So that just made me do more magic because that made me feel good about myself. I couldn't tell anybody what had happened to me. And then at about 12 years old, I got recruited into a satanic coven. And these people in this coven told me, hey, you know, what happened to you when you were 11 was atrocious. That should have never happened to anybody. But here's a chance to get your power back. You know, and you got to remember that as Christians, we don't have power. You know, that's not something we really have. And, you know, but Satan, again, here's the package. Don't examine it too closely. If I want to, I can have sex as much as I want with whoever I want. Nobody can tell me no. And if I tell somebody no, they have to respect that. And we'll also film it, and you'll be famous. You know, so I bought into that. And then there was also, when I was probably late 13s or early 14, we had a ritual where it was like a party. All the boys, like 12 to 15, showed up at this adult female's house. And the purpose was for all of us to have sex with this girl and to make her pregnant. And then approximately 9 months later, we were going to be aborting her baby.
Wow. So again, so that's kind of like and would you say that's like a standard practice in the Satanist covens where they're trying to lure young people who are obviously, you know, becoming teens and feeling the hormones and, you know, the sex drive, etc. Using that as a trope to lure them into these quote parties, but then, you know, there's a satanic force behind that.
I mean, absolutely. And, you know, Satan knows, you know, he's been watching us for a long time. You know, he knows all of our sins. He knows how to make us sin, you know, how to tempt us to sin. You know, he knows what things work. He knows, you know, you know, if somebody was going to write a book on a particular sin, they would come to me because I'm the expert on that sin. You know, and we all have a sin that's like that. You know, like we all commit tons of sins every day. But there are some sins that we particularly like. You know, even, you know, it's like St. Paul says that the things that I don't want to do, I do. The things that I want to do, I can't. You know, it's like, or I don't. You know, and that's how my sinning sometimes is. You know, it's like I don't want to do these things, but I'm drawn to them. You know, it's because the demons present you with this beautiful package again right in front of you. Who would know if you did it? You know, well, unfortunately, God would know. You know, so, you know, God would know. And the devil now knows you did it. And now the devil can give you guilt because you did it. And, you know, but the devil knows that sins of the flesh, sexual sins, are very attractive to us. You know, these are things that, you know, it's like certain aspects of what we see go in through our vision, go into the brain and hit you in a certain spot. It's just like, you know, that if you're feeling down, if your girlfriend tells you something or your wife tells you something and you're not particularly happy about what she said, whatever that news is, you know that if you pick up a piece of chocolate, you'll feel better.
Well, my co-host definitely knows that. Wow, so that's so much to unpack, because here you had, of course, in you know, for people who are sort of never been in these circles, you know, we're at least told by people who are, you know, who've talked about their testimony online or something like that, heard the stories. And to far as my understanding, at least I've studied Buddhism for many years before I became a Christian, but you know, the whole ideas of symbology and different hand postures, things like this becoming part of ritual, and then also becoming very mainstream. Like you'll see a lot of Hollywood actors supposedly utilizing, you know, different 666 signs or devil horn signs. And are these in your experience, is this symbology and this kind of hand mudra postures, were they also incorporated in these type of rituals as well?
A lot of things are like the 666 logo, which the people that don't know what you're referring to, it's like putting the pointer finger and the thumb together and making the circle. It's like the AOK symbol. You know, people that say it's AOK and they hold us up. And what people don't realize is that the three fingers that are raised above that connect with that one circle, and it looks like 3 sixes.
Right.
You know, I know there's people at home right now trying to mimic this, you know, putting their fingers
like
together.
a lot of stars, like take pictures, like they cover their eye with it and they do a 666.
Right. Well, now when you do that, that's acknowledgement of the Illuminati. That's an Illuminati logo. So covering one eye or covering one eye with the 3 sixes is it's kind of like showing the whole world, I'm a member of the Illuminati, are you? Now, there's a lot of people that say that that's, you know, crap, that, you know, this doesn't really exist and those kind of things don't happen. However, are you familiar with the Lady Gaga documentary that just came out?
No, maybe not. Yeah, go ahead.
Apparently it's on Netflix. I haven't looked it up. I've got Netflix. I haven't looked it up. But I guess there's, if you look up the articles on it, the articles came out probably a couple of weeks ago. And in it, Lady Gaga claims that she was performing at like a strip club or something. And after her show, this guy came up to her and said, I can make you famous. You know, you've got the look, you've got everything you need, but if you sign with me, I can make you this mega star. And he presented her with, again, the package. And she thought, this is awesome. I'm going to go ahead and do it because I'm desperate. I'm hungry. You know, this sounds like a good idea. What could be the harm? And she believes that she sold her soul to the Illuminati.
Wow.
And then she became Lady Gaga, you know, which at that time, Lady Gaga was nothing. Now
Right.
Lady Gaga is this huge star. But now as a result of that, she says that she thinks she has, I think, fibromyalgia through signing this deal. And she's in so much pain and she doesn't want to do this anymore. You know, and she also doesn't want to go to hell. You know, she says in the documentary, I believe, she said something about she's been contacting the Catholic Church trying to find a priest that can perform an exorcism.
Wow.
You know,
Because
I was like,
I saw an interview with her where she was actually saying she has like fits in her sleep. She has constant nightmare terrors, and she has like these demons that are talking to her, you know, and she's kind of joking about it, and then she says, like, I can't sleep alone at night, and I think I've sold my soul to Satan. You know, I've seen an interview where she actually says that.
well, I was hoping, you know, when I heard about what it is she thinks she did, and she also says that Katy Perry did the same thing. And Katy Perry admits there's an interview on YouTube where Katy Perry says, I wanted to be the next Amy Grant, who was a Christian singer back in the, I guess, 80s and 90s.
Right.
And, you know, she said, I traveled with my parents and I did a lot of singing. I wanted to be the next Amy Grant, and that didn't work out. So I sold my soul to the devil instead.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, if I could talk to these people,
yes,
you know, I could tell. You know, there's a couple of things they don't realize. First of all, it is impossible to sell something that you don't own. You know, it'd be like,
yes.
like I have my ministry has a 2015 Honda Odyssey, which obviously I can't drive because I'm blind. So we don't drive this anymore. But you cannot legally sell anybody my van because it doesn't belong to you. That's the same reason you can't sell your soul. It's like God died for you. Jesus paid the ultimate price for your soul. You can't loan it, lease it. You can't let somebody borrow it. There's nothing you can do with it. You know,
Yes.
and it's like, but now the devil, you might have heard this. You might have heard this. The devil's a liar. I'm here to
Yes.
confirm. If the devil tells you good morning, get a second opinion. So, you know, he'll lie to you and tell you that he's got your soul and you can never have it back. Now, if you believe that, then you don't understand divine mercy, and you don't understand that God is so much more powerful
Yes.
than that little piece of crap.
Yes.
You know, God loves all of us. Now, it doesn't make sense why, because we screw up every day, you know, but God loves all of us. And it's like there's the cabinet maker and there's the cabinet. Which one is more powerful? What did the cabinet do? It's
Right.
just sitting there being made. The cabinet maker made it, and the cabinet maker can destroy it.
Yes.
So that's, you know, Satan is a creature. And he's a little higher creature than we are, but he's still a creature. He can make anything. You know, and here it is, he's saying, oh, God can't save you. God can't rescue you. And it's like, now you got to remember that everything he says, you need to, you know, also add in, I'm a liar. I'm a liar. I'm a schemer. I am plotting your destruction. I eventually want you to be burning in hell. And
Yes.
it's like, he's not your friend. He's not our friend. You know, there are people that think, you know, when they think of the devil, they think of all the drugs I can take, all the booze I can drink, a rock star lifestyle. That'd be so incredible. I could have 12 girlfriends a night. I could drive a Lamborghini. I could have all this money. I could have all these houses. That would be incredible. I'd love to be famous. all that. Everybody buys the Lady Gaga dream. What I think of when I think of Satanism, I think of child pornography, human trafficking. I think of a girl that was prostituting herself out for a hit of heroin.
Wow.
And then she got the hit, and she OD'd. And as she's dying, people are still having sex with her.
Oh my gosh, wow.
And then she dies. I saw this when I was 12.
Wow.
And that's the glamorous image of Satanism that I've got. This is not, and you can't say, well, that was an isolated incident, because, if it was isolated, then all of us would still think happy thoughts when we thought about satanic covens. But most of us have an image like that or close to that. All of us, when we hear about a pedophile ring, what do we think of a lot of times? Satanism.
Yeah.
Why would you think that? Why would you think that if Satanism was all about these rock star lifestyles?
Yes, right. Now it's interesting because a lot of the satanic imagery that's been exposed, and like these Baphomet imageries with him with different hand symbols and stuff like that, but he has like his sexual organ is erect, and it's so even in their symbology there's a lot of sexual imagery, and of course even in the Baphomet reverse pentagram, I'm looking at it right now for our audience viewers right now. It's interesting. Why do they write like the Samael and Lilith? What is this, what is that? Why is that always seem to be on a Baphomet upside down pentagram?
Well, Lilith is a demon's name.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, I would guess, is also a demon's name. Not every satanic cult is run the same way, and not all of them worship the same entities.
Right.
And people, they sometimes worship things that some satanic cults would look at and say, that's not real, or, we don't believe that.
Right.
The Baphomet statue is actually, there's in our disc, our abortion is a satanic sacrifice. We go into detail about the Baphomet statue, and we describe each one of the hand gestures, where there's like feathers on part of its stomach and then fur on another part, and one hand points up to the sky and hand points down, and everything that's in that is representative of something. Like it's pointing to, I think it's pointing to the moon, but it's not our moon. It's pointing to the moon of something. And then the hand that's pointing down is pointing down to something specific. And the people that, the Baphomet statue appeals to two different groups. It appeals to the headier Satanists, the ones that claim that they know what's really going on in the world, and you don't have a clue. And, and this statue represents their heady beliefs that you're too dumb to understand. And then there's other Satanists that believe that, well, just as Christians would put a cross or a crucifix in their house as representative of who they are, that having a Baphomet statue in your house would just show the world that you're a Satanist, and that you could probably get some kind of power, some level of power, by having this statue in your house.
Interesting. Now, in one of your articles, of course, and I'm sure you covered this in your Abortion is Satanic Sacrifice, you wrote about how a lot of the Satanists and Wiccans, I believe, also gather at abortion clinics because they have access to fetuses. Now, we've heard that in alternative news media talking about pedophile rings and Satanists, and also necrophiles and rituals on children, killing children. How is the abortion clinic? What is it to the Satanist or to the Wiccan or to Luciferian? Although they're disparate groups, is it almost like a center, a church center?
There was, the funny thing is that I had an article that came out as an interview from the Lepanto Institute in, I think it was August 2015. And the interview was, the article was called something like "Former Satanist Said He Used to Do Abortions in Abortion Clinics." And that article went viral. And that week, Satanists and Wiccans came out of the woodwork to tell me I was a liar, that this stuff doesn't happen. And Wiccans were coming out saying, you know, we don't believe that. Wiccans would not perform rituals with fetuses. We would not go to an abortion clinic. These are not things that we do. This guy, Zachary King, doesn't know what he's saying. You know, and you know, sometimes the greatest witness for who you are is the devil. And on this particular week, like from Monday, my article came out on Monday. So from Monday to Friday, things were going poorly, you know, with, I mean, if you believe that any press is good press, then I was getting awesome press, because I was getting bad press every day, you know, and we're just kind of like watching this. It's like, well, let's just ride this out. You know, it's like nothing else we can do. You know, there's pretty much nothing I can say, because these people are just hammering away at, he's a liar, he's this, he's a charlatan, he's doing this, he's doing that, you know. And we're like, well, you know, let's just see what God does. And let's see what the devil does. You know, see if the devil's on the same page as everybody else. On Saturday, Wiccans showed up at an abortion clinic. I could be wrong, but I think it was in the Detroit area. And they spoke out and said that abortion is a woman's sacrament.
Yes, right. We heard that one too, that article too. They're arguing that it's a religious right.
It was more
right. It's a religious right,
but more recently.
And recently too.
Yeah.
You know, and suddenly I'm like, oh, look at that. The devil's coming to my aid. And I probably didn't even realize that, you know, your own people are throwing you under the bus. And then Satanists came out, I think the same weekend, and talked about, they did like a demonstration, and they protested and said that any hindrance on their ability to get an abortion on demand is a violation of their religious beliefs.
There you go. Wow.
And suddenly, there was no more people attacking me, because people from the Satanist camp and from the Wiccan camp are agreeing with me, but they don't realize it.
They were forced to admit they were exposed. I mean, wow, that is incredible.
You know, and it's like, you got to love things that happen like that. You know, it looks like, you know, it looks like you're being persecuted, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's like, well, God, you're in control, so whatever you say is, you know, what's got to be. And suddenly you go from being, and now they didn't come out and say, oh, by the way, Zachary King's right, and we're wrong, and we're liars, and we're sorry, and we didn't mean it, and, you know, you should just listen to everything he says. They didn't say that.
Right.
You know, but they did say, this is a woman's sacrament, and, oh, you can't attack Zachary King anymore, you know, because, oh, he's right. All right,
footnote
let's just
there.
Back into the woodwork. Let's just go hide over here, and everything will be fine.
Oh, my goodness. That is so incredible. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back after this short break with more with Zachary King. Stay with us.
I'm down here at the range today. I just learned a new technique from the father of the .44 Magnum, Elmer Keith, which is called shooting out of the notch, which allows you to make really long distance shots and still have an extremely precise sight picture. So I brought my CW9 car down, and with this little gun, we're gonna shoot this little munchkin at 200 yards up in the hills, applying this technique, and hopefully we'll make the shot. To apply this technique, instead of using the blade of the front sight lined up with the top of the rear sight, I'm going to take the dot of the front sight and raise it up so that it's out of the notch, but I'm still going to keep the front sight on my target. Bringing that front sight up like that is going to compensate for the bullet drop over that excessively long distance with just this little gun. So if applied right, we should be making contact. Let's see how it goes. I saw this shot, so I'm a little bit out of breath because you gotta run to make sure that is what I thought it was, and it was. So while making this shot, from that distance with these white dot sights, it literally would cover the entire target. You couldn't see what you were shooting. So using the Elmer Keith technique, you were able to raise it out of the back notch, I can't breathe, out of the back notch, allowing you to keep your accuracy, aim, and also still see the target, which is key because it was a hard shot, not gonna lie. But yeah, it went great, and Elmer knows what he's talking about. And for such a small gun to be able to take that hit, I'm very impressed with this. All right, guys, be sure to like and share, and I'll see you out on the range. That was awesome. Hey, can I try that one? Yeah, let's do it with the 380. Does everybody have eyes and ears?
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report this Monday, October 16th, 2017. We are joined today with special guest Zachary King. Now, Mr. King, we were talking about before the break about the various types of satanic rituals and or symbology. If you could, just for the layperson, is there, I've heard that there's a difference between, for example, Satanism and Luciferianism. Or you spoke about in the last segment that this is not a monolithic entity, but there are many disparate groups that sort of are obviously led by the same spirit. Could you speak on that a little bit?
Sure. Well, basically, when you look at the world of how many different satanic cults there are, I mean, there's thousands around the world.
Right.
However, when you break it down, there's like two basic types. Now, I know there's the purists that are going to say, oh, no, there's hundreds of thousands. And it's like, no. Be honest. There's two. there's atheistic and there's theistic. And that's the difference in a Satanist is usually theistic and a Luciferian is atheistic.
Oh, interesting.
So how this breaks down, because I know atheistic Satanist doesn't make any sense at all. How can you believe in the devil if you don't believe in God? And that sounds like I'm speaking crazy talk or something. What it is, the people that embrace, like the Satanic Temple. There's one based in like Detroit. That's the one that has the Baphomet statue, or the famous Baphomet statue, the one that travels around the country that used to be at the Oklahoma City courthouse. You know, and then there's in Massachusetts, I think in Salem, there's another Satanic Temple there. There's the Satanic Temple that keeps showing up in Oklahoma City at the Civic Center to do their black masses. Most of these groups are atheistic in nature. They don't believe that there is a God. They don't believe in the devil. Now they make these claims. Remember, too, that Satan's a liar. So, you know, you're not quite sure how truthful they're being. But, you know, they claim that there's no God, there's no devil, there's no heaven, there's no hell. They took on the name Satanist because they believe that is the vilest thing they could call themselves, the vilest title they could call themselves. Now, I disagree. I think, hey, you want to embrace that term Satanist because you think it's the worst title? Why don't you embrace the term pedophile? I don't see you jumping on that one.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that seems like that would be worse than Satanist, but I don't see them jumping on, oh, I'm a pedophile. Nope, nobody says that. You know, now the guy that leads the Satanic Temple that keeps doing the black masses in Oklahoma, he is a pedophile. He's a convicted rapist, I believe. I think the girl was I think she was under 18, so 16 or 17. But in some states, that qualifies you to be a pedophile. And here it is, he's like a true Satanist. You know, he's like, I'm having sex with underage people, and I've been arrested for it. And he's still out there in the forefront. You know, like Satanism is all about doing these things, and he seems to be out and proud about it. You know, it's like, you're disgusting.
Well, you have like this, it's interesting because you have like these political movements too that are always trying to reduce the age limit, get it down to, you know, sexual consent down to from 18, and Canada is 14, in Germany it's like 15, you know, so they're just trying to lower it, and the UN is even talking about 10-year-olds should have sexual rights and be able to decide who they sleep with even though there's 80 years. I mean, it's like totally insane, but it seems like that's the same spirit as these Satanists who are in these sex rituals and are doing these type of pedophile rituals.
I think it's in Canada, they mentioned recently that the sodomy law was reduced to 16-year-olds, and they're trying to make it acceptable so that any age can commit sodomy and it not be illegal. You know, and it's
wow.
like,
See, it's just like, wow.
You know, and that's not saying that, you know, they're not looking at it from the perspective of, oh, my 10-year-old can now commit sodomy and not get in trouble. They're looking at it as now this 40-year-old man can have sex, can have sodomy with a 10-year-old and not get in trouble.
Golly, I mean, this is like, that's hell on earth. That's hell on earth right there.
And Canada has got some messed up stuff anyway. I mean, they voted last year to legalize bestiality. You know,
wow,
like, you know,
gosh.
The Canadians talk about, well, you voted in Donald Trump. It's like, all right, you voted in Donald Trump. We didn't vote in bestiality.
You voted in bestiality, man. Where's your toque now? Goodness. Oh my goodness, that's that is insane.
Did you guys hear about earlier this year when witches came out and said that they wanted to do a curse against Donald Trump?
Yes, they hexed him, right?
Satanism, yeah, they put Satanism right out in the forefront.
Right,
and,
right.
I actually had to, I didn't want to do this, but I had to be honest. Somebody interviewed me about that because I think that the claim was that Wiccans had said this, and Wiccans were putting the spell out. And, you know, I said, I know that, you know, Wiccans are satanic by default because they practice magic. They don't believe in the devil. When you go up to try and convert one, it's very difficult because they don't believe in the devil. They don't believe in hell. They don't believe that what they're doing is wrong. because in their mind, they only do white or healing magic.
Oh, interesting. So
because
that's the
they don't-
difference between white and black magic. I see.
So they, in this curse that people claimed was produced by a Wiccan, in the curse, they ask you to call upon a demon entity to help you do this magic spell. A Wiccan would never do that. They don't believe in the demon entity. They don't believe in hell or the devil. So it couldn't have been a Wiccan that came up with this spell. As well, because Donald Trump is not attacking the Wiccans, they do not see Donald Trump as a threat. If they're doing spells for Donald Trump, it's to help him make decisions, not to attack him. And I hated to say that on the air because, it made me sound like I was standing up for the Wiccans, but, in a sense, I mean, truth is truth. And, I had to say, well, this is what they actually believe. So, I didn't think they had actually put the curse on Donald Trump yet. I mean, yes, there are tons of different witches that are not Wiccans.
Wow,
there's,
it's so interesting because like now is a time where all this stuff is kind of coming out. I mean, under President Trump, there was a sting operation in L.A. where they arrested over 474 sex traffickers, and they were saying that basically they were also keeping children in cages and torturing them, basically as part of this trafficking. Is that also this kind of sort of bondage, sexuality practice, and this idea of torturing and almost like sex as power, some kind of magical power, the domination that you have over somebody. Is this also strains that you saw in your 26 years as Satanist?
Well, that's also, if you look at, I think it was last year, they arrested something like 275 pedophiles in Canada. And they rescued over 300 children. And this is normal. This is allowed to happen because people think, oh, that stuff doesn't really happen. That's not a real thing. And things like, if you look up SRA, if you Google search SRA, which is Satanic Ritual Abuse, there's an article that comes out that talks about, it's the top article. It's a Wikipedia that tells you that SRA was proven false in the 80s, that doesn't exist. But I know psychiatrists around the country and psychologists that all their clients are SRA victims.
Wow. Wow.
And I personally know a couple of counselors that do that. And I work with SRA victims. It's a real thing. It's a real problem. And, here it is, the Satanists are out there going, oh, no, Satan is a nice guy. He would never do that. We believe in treating animals and children fairly. And, we love everybody. And it's like, hey, you're a bad Satanist. It's like Satan would not be happy with your behavior. Satan wants the person that's willing to degrade themselves and jump in the mud and be drugged through it. And here it is, you're saying, oh no, love and light and beautiful things, rainbows, unicorns, everything's great. Love kittens, and it's like, no, the Satan I knew didn't do that. The Satan I knew, would kill a cat and eat it, and sleep with children and say it's okay.
You mentioned that because there was a young lady who was interviewed by the BBC because she was brought into the Satanic circles with Jimmy Savile and these other British high-level politicians that were involved, like Edward Heath and these kind of people. And she was saying that by the time she was 12, she was pregnant like 7 times, aborted all the babies. And the announcer asks her, what did you do? And she said they basically did a human sacrifice ritual. They killed the baby and then they made the girl eat her own child.
Yeah, there's a role to play in every satanic cult. There's a position called a breeder, and a breeder's job is to get pregnant so that she can have an abortion.
Wow.
And the breeder, in theory, is gaining power within the satanic coven, because the more abortions you can have, the more valuable you become. At a certain point, though, your body gives out. You know, it will not produce another child because you're killing all your babies.
Wow.
You know, I don't know if it's because, you know, you have harmed your body in doing this, or if it's trying to protect any future children from you. But eventually, your body will not produce more children. Now, that's if you're having abortions. If you're having the children, I mean, my friend Jennifer's got 12 kids. You know, my friends, the Woods down in Florida, they have 13 kids. The oldest one is Sister Purity. She's a nun. You know, it's like people that have big families seem to be able to go on forever and just keep producing. And people that are aborting a lot of times stop after 6 or 7 because their body won't produce another child.
Wow. Wow, so many incredible things. My goodness, I can't believe an hour went by that quickly. We're now ending. We're now coming to the end of our broadcast, but it's been such an incredible, eye-opening experience just speaking with you. We've been so blessed to have you and so honored. How do our audience and our listeners support you? Do you have a website? Some of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, if you go to allsaintsministry.org, it's allsaintsministry.org, all my contact information is there. My email address is there. There's a contacts page. It's mysticforgod@yahoo.com. My phone number is there, which is the phone number you called me on. You know, and that phone rings to my cell phone. You know, so there's no, I do have a secretary, but she's not who answers the phone. I have multiple assistants. None of them answer the phone. It's my phone. So it's very amusing to me when somebody calls me and I answer and they start squealing in the background. You know, like, I just called Zachary King and he answered the phone. You know, like, yes, I answer my own phone. You know, and we have Abortion is a Satanic Sacrifice CD sets. We also are producing a book right now of the same thing. The book hopefully will be done by December. It's being published. You know, and you know, as you said at the beginning of the show, I survived. The ministry survives on the kindness of others. You know, people donating money to us is how we do everything. Obviously, God still wants the ministry to keep going because money keeps trickling in.
Yes,
I wish that people knew how to, you know, to turn the faucet on, you know, stronger instead of just trickling. But you know, it's like we haven't shut down. You know, the lights are still on, and and it's, you know, slow trickle is still better than no trickle. So you know, I appreciate everything that people do for us. You know,
well, you're doing such important work. Wow, and coming from your background, God can use you in such a mighty way. We're just praying for you, pray for your ministry. We really thank you for all the brave work that you're doing, really coming out and exposing the nefarious nature of these organizations, also warning young people to not fall into that trap as well. Thank you so much, Zachary King, for joining us today. We are truly blessed. Everybody go to the allsaintsministry.org. Please support the work that Zachary is doing. Get the CD, Abortion is Satanic Sacrifice. Share it with your, kids. Give it as a present to other people. People need to be awakened to the fact that abortion is not only being done to end life, but it's also being connected to actual Satanism, which is feeding off of this horrible practice. So we thank you so much, Mr. King, for joining us today. It's been, I'd love to have you on again and just delve into this a little more deeply, because it's just been so fascinating, captivating, and I just can't believe how fast the hour went by. But we have to sign off for today. We hope to have you on again. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. King.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
God bless. Thank you. All right, folks, that is it for today. We will see you tomorrow, 5 a.m. sharp, on the King's Report. God bless, Godspeed, and may His Kingdom come.